Hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City. I'm your host, Courtney Bloomer. Today's episode is brought to you by Lone Mountain Veterinary Hospital, providing top-notch care for pets in the Carson City area. Today's guest is our newly appointed Fire Chief, Slamon. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today.
Well, welcome to the show and also to Carson City.
Yes.
You have been on the job for about a couple months now.
Been on the job since the last couple days of March, so just a month into the job.
All right. And how do you like it so far?
I love it. Love the community. We have an outstanding fire department, and it's just a great city, and the location couldn't be better.
It is a nice place to be.
Beautiful.
With regards to the department, you came to us from another department in California.
Sure.
What are some things that are a little bit different about our department here?
One, we're a full-service fire department, so we provide advanced life support through paramedics and transport by ambulance. So that's something different from where I came from the previous department. We're also I would call it a very creative fire department. We have grown. Our response numbers have grown annually by about 5% every year, yet our resources haven't grown. So we are definitely a more for less fire department, but still continue to provide outstanding service.
All right. The fire department, as you mentioned, does a lot of things in our community other than just putting out fires, although that is one of the more important things that you do. Our fire department also serves as our emergency management.
Correct.
With that, you guys have been pretty busy this past winter with some flooding.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit.
So as we know, we've had an amazing winter. It was long needed, and it's a careful what you ask for winter. So we have a tremendous amount of snowpack during the winter itself. We had some flooding areas during some of the heavier impacted storms. And so now what we are preparing for is for all of that snow to melt, to get into our creeks and rivers and into our reservoirs. Because there's so much snow this year, there's a lot of concern about the snow melt and the flooding. Carson City itself, we look like we're going to be okay from the floods. What our big concerns are the roadways in, the transportation in and out of the city. We could see some potential flooding that cuts off our access to our north or south, east or west. So we really want our citizens to be aware of that and to be prepared for that. We may not be able to get to Reno as easily as we get to today, or to the Minden area, or to the east counties. So we just need to be prepared for that. We're asking our citizens, if the worst case scenario happens where we could get cut off from all four ways, we want citizens to be prepared for food and water and the essential supplies, medications, and those types of things. So our daily activities, if you're used to traveling outside of the city or into the city, you should just be aware that travel could be impacted.
Right, and I know that some people are thinking of locations like Cradlebaugh, south
Yes.
of town, and that's a place that we had trouble this past winter that flooded and cut us off via 395. Where are some of the other locations that we're concerned about?
So the 580 area around Washoe, and then certainly the East County, those are potentials for flooding. Washoe Lake is full, as we know. It's no longer a dry lake bed. It is full. It's overgrowing its brim, and it's threatening to come on to 580, and that could impact travel from there. So those are the two that I'm probably the most concerned about, because those are where the majority of our residents come in and out of on a regular basis. And then we experienced several rock slides this year on 50 over Spooner, and so there's certainly a potential for that with all of the runoff. Mother Nature is going to take her own course, and we can't control quite as much as we would like to with that.
Another thing that I've heard might be an issue for us here in Carson City is that folks in some of our outlying communities and people who live, for example, out in Lyon County, where they're expecting maybe some worse flooding, are going to have to come here to Carson City. What should those folks know about coming here and what they should do?
Well, first of all, you're welcome. We're happy to host you. Secondly, we could be potentially impacted by a large influx of evacuees. And so with that, our restaurants will be impacted, our grocery stores will be impacted. So our normal supplies that we are used to and our normal wait times that we're used to may be impacted by that. The city is prepared. We've been working with our adjoining counties, with the state, and all of our partners to build plans. So we are building plans for medical. We're building plans for relocation, evacuation centers. We're working with we're starting a public safety ad campaign and getting it out to our businesses, our Chamber of Commerce, and anybody that could potentially be impacted, and just let them know that we may see a large influx of citizens from other counties, and two, we may have impacts from transportation in and out of the city.
Now, we don't want to worry people, so some of this is kind of a worst case scenario kind of thing, but this could happen. Realistically, though, we're already experiencing some high water on some of our rivers and some swift water type dangers. What should people know about staying out of the river and staying safe?
Certainly. So the river today and the river this summer is going to be much different than the river or the rivers that you've experienced over the last several years. Much higher flows, much more rapid flows, and certainly a lot colder than it has been in the past several years. It is also because of the heavy rains and snow melt this year. The river, Mother Nature again, takes her course and has changed some of the rivers and eroded some of the banks. So we're asking everyone to be very careful if you're walking along the banks. Keep an eye on your children. Definitely keep your pets on a leash. If a pet does get into the river, let them evacuate themselves. Call 911. We will send a swift water team out there. Absolutely a service we're happy to provide, but we don't want you going in after your pets. Too often, more often than not, the pet makes it out and the citizen, the owner that went in doesn't make it out.
Right, so definitely be safe around the water that we've got flowing through our community this year. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of water, and it's continuing to come down, but with that, a lot of vegetation is growing, and your department is looking forward to what's going to come later this summer and in the fall.
We weren't looking forward to it. We're preparing for it.
Yeah, not excited that it's coming, but definitely getting ready for some of those potential wildland fire impacts. Our community has been touched by fire before. Mm-hmm. It will almost certainly happen again. How can citizens prepare for wildfire in Carson City?
So certainly, the biggest thing you can do, there's several things that you can do. One is create a defensible space around your home, especially if you live in the open space areas or in the canyons. We want you to make sure you've cleared out your vegetation. A lot of destruction has happened this winter, so we've got a lot of dead vegetation that didn't survive the winter. We've also got a lot of limbs and tree branches and everything down. All of those contribute to a fast spreading wildfire. So I ask that you clear out your properties. There are some opportunities. If you go on our website at carson.org and go to the fire department's website, you can see there's some other opportunities for dumpsters you may qualify for if you're living in certain areas. But we ask that you clear out that vegetation, give your house, your residents some space from the vegetation itself, and certainly trim it up so that we don't have what we call ladder fuels. So a low running grass fire starts to build its way up into the trees, and that's where it creates
up in the trees.
Exactly.
And becomes really dangerous
for
the firefighters.
Absolutely, it's extremely dangerous for us, and so we want to know that we can get. And that's the second part: is be prepared to evacuate. Have all your pertinent documents, whether it's on a computer or in the cloud, or in your photographs. Anything. Think about the things that you can't live without: medications, and obviously your family members,
your pets,
and have an evacuation plan in place, because we don't know, we can't anticipate when a wildfire strikes, but what we do know is it's going to spread very rapidly, and your evacuation time may be very minimal. So have that plan in place, have everything located or planned on where you can locate it, and have an idea of where you're going to evacuate to. The Carson City area itself may not be a viable opportunity, depending on how large the wildfire is and how fast it's spreading.
All right. And, we've watched fires in our area just last fall in Washoe Valley, of course. There was a fire and some homes were lost. So it's definitely important to start planning now for
Absolutely.
the upcoming fire season.
Absolutely. With every year, we've had droughts for several years, so we knew about the dry vegetation and the dead vegetation. Now we're going to have a lot of growth this year. And so the early months of summer may not be as impactful, but certainly the later months are going to be very concerning to us because we're going to have a lot more vegetation that ends up drying out all of our weeds, and our cheat grasses and everything is going to dry out, and they become basically kindling.
Right, definitely fuel for a fire that might come through. If a fire does come, your department will be ready.
Absolutely, we are prepared, and all of our partner agencies are prepared, and we are willing to put ourselves out there on the line to protect you.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
Fire Chief Sean Slamon with the Carson City Fire Department. Thanks to all of you for joining us this week as well for this week's episode of It's Your City, brought to you by Lone Mountain Veterinary Hospital in Carson City, providing the best care available for your pets. If your business would like to sponsor a future edition of It's Your City, please contact Darla at the address shown on your screen. I'm your host, Cortney Bloomer. We'll see you next week.